Hello, my name is Patrick McKeown and I'm from Ireland, and over the next few minutes I'll be discussing the oxygen advantage for addressing dysfunctional breathing in athletes and also simulating high altitude training for improved aerobic and aerobic performance. So when we look at breathing efficiency, athletes, we'll always expect athletes to have good fitness levels. However, for many in my experience, that we often meet athletes who plateau in terms of their fitness. They often find that no matter how hard they train, they just can't seem to get, very marginal improvements in terms of their fitness. Now, what we need to consider is, how is the athlete breathing during the day? Because it's everyday breathing which will also influence athletic performance. And as you know, an athlete will train to build up their arms, train to build up their legs, they may do nutrition, they may do psychological training, but seldom, if ever, is their breathing examined. And by addressing dysfunctional breathing patterns, and I don't mean by taking deep breaths or big breaths, but by addressing dysfunctional breathing patterns, we in turn can improve sports performance, because breathing efficiency and physical fitness, they're both independent and complementary. While physical fitness does not always translate into breathing efficiency, there's no doubt that breathing efficiency is the gateway to attaining physical fitness. Why do I say that? Well, if your breathing is efficient, if your breathing is optimal, you get optimal amount of oxygen delivered to the cells. And in terms of human performance, oxygen is king. So really, if you were to take a run alongside an elite athlete in good health with good breathing, how would you expect him or her to breathe? You will expect their breathing to be light for the given level of exercise, because light breathing is, it's more conducive to good health. And conversely to that, an individual who is running out of breath or running short of breath or more breathless, you're not going to say that that's a perfect way. There's always a relationship between sickness and breathing. If you look at people who are sick, watch them breathe, you'll often see different characteristics. Even, if it's just asthma, for example, oftentimes the mouth is open. Upper chest breathing, noticeable breathing, having a sigh every now and again, and these simple innocuous habits will actually reduce sports performance. So by addressing dysfunctional breathing, it is the key to improving sports performance. Now, a second aspect of what we do is breath holding to simulate high altitude training. And I'm just going to examine the effect here on running economy. So running economy is the amount of energy or oxygen consumed while running at a speed less than maximum pace. Typically, the less energy required to run at a given pace, the better. If you can perform a certain workload while consuming relatively less oxygen, you're going to be efficient in your use of oxygen. Your body is able to use oxygen efficiently. That's indicative of a high running economy. So in this study, 18 swimmers who were comprising of 10 men and 8 women, they were assigned to 2 groups. The first group was required to take only 2 breaths per length, and the second group was having 7 breaths per length of the pool. The researchers found that running economy improved by 6% in the group that performed reduced breathing during swimming. In terms of performance, with breathing, less is more. So we practice breathing exercises designed to subject the body to a reduced volume of air. And by doing that, we have to reset the respiratory center, that there's a better tolerance of the gas CO2, but also that breathing becomes lighter. Because during physical exercise, when we're doing physical exercise, oxygen is consumed, so that drops. Carbon dioxide is being produced, so that increases. And by doing that, by doing breathing exercise, we simulate that effect in order to reset the brain. But we go one step further with simulation of high altitude training, in that we drop oxygen even further, and we increase carbon dioxide even higher. So we're able to subject the body to a higher level, to a higher level of breathlessness than what would be otherwise experienced during physical exercise. And for most people, doing these exercises, even though simulation of high altitude training and doing breath holds, it has been around since the 1960s. However, how we do it is different. Generally, what was done was taking a breath in and holding. And we do the opposite. So for most people in our experience, in our work, after a week or so of practice, a drop of oxygen saturation below 90% can be observed. And this is a level that's comparative to the effects of living at a high altitude of 3,000 to 4,000 meters, or between 9 and 13,000 feet. So literally, we can have an athlete or any individual who's got a good interest in sports, that we, instead of you going to the mountain, we can bring the mountain to you. So one research here that we look at to establish the effects of an 8-week hypercapnic, which basically means high carbon dioxide, and hypoxic, which basically means low oxygen training program in elite male swimmers. And they practiced it for 30 minutes to 45 minutes by 3 times a week. Each person, they held their breath to a subjective feeling for as long as possible. Now, what happens when you hold your breath? Well, obviously the body senses that there's a drop of oxygen. So a number of things happen. One is that your spleen, which is your blood bank, will release extra blood cells into circulation. And a second factor is that the kidneys, because of the drop of oxygen, the kidneys will synthesize a hormone called EPO. And EPO, erythropoietin, it sends a message. It is a hormone. It sends a message to the bone marrow to produce more red blood cells. So in this experiment here, the experimental group who were doing breath holding, their pre-hemoglobin was 144.63 before the test, and at the end of the 8 weeks, it had increased to 152.38. The control group had actually got a drop of hemoglobin. Now, why are we concerned with hemoglobin? Well, hemoglobin carries oxygen. And if you can increase hemoglobin, you improve aerobic capacity. So in this instance, there was an improvement in aerobic capacity, an improvement in hemoglobin by 5.35% at the end of the 8 weeks. Now, in terms of VO2 max, when you increase hemoglobin, you can also expect to improve VO2 max. VO2 max pre the test was 63.8 in the experimental group, and at the end of 8 weeks, it was 70.38%. The control group increased marginally. So here was a 10.7% increase to VO2 max as a result of doing breath holding 3 times a week, but doing it specific to drop oxygen saturation. Here's another study that I would like you to present to you. 15 middle distance runners. There were runners for 600 meters to 3,000 meters over a 6-week period. And they participated in official athletics competition both before and after, so that determined their times. The first group, who did normal breathing, over the 6 weeks, they had a plus 0.03% improvement. The second group did 15 to 20 minutes of breath holding on the exhalation once per week. They had a 1.27% improvement to their times. The third group, which did 15 to 20 minutes of breath holding on the exhalation twice per week, they had a 1.33% improvement to their times. So again, the first study we looked at was the improvement to aerobic capacity. The second study was the improvement to times as a result of bringing breath holding into sports. Now, the third aspect that I'm going to look at is reduced acidosis, and this would be anaerobic capacity, because fatigue, which would be defined as, it's a physiological measure, but it's the breaking point at which the athlete cannot continue with their exercise intensity. And when we are moving our muscles, the metabolism produces CO2. This dissociates into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate. If there's sufficient oxygen reaching the muscles, the hydrogen ion is oxidized in the mitochondria to generate water. However, if we're working our body excessively and there's insufficient oxygen reaching the muscles, all of the hydrogen ions cannot be oxidized, and instead they associate with pyruvic acid to form lactic acid. And lactic acid is often implicated in causing fatigue. It's the factor that causes the athlete they have to cease the intensity that they're doing due to fatigue setting in. Now, where does breath holding coming into this? Well, when you hold your breath after an exhalation, it causes a decrease, so we purposely decrease oxygen to trigger lactic acid. At the same time, we increase carbon dioxide, which in turn further acidifies the blood by increasing the amount of hydrogen ions in the blood. As I said already, carbon dioxide in the blood dissociates into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate. So, by holding the breath, we drop oxygen, we increase carbon dioxide, and it's a combined effect that will acidify the blood. And what we do is we subject the body to increase acidification. And this then conditions the brain to tolerate stronger acidosis. It teaches the brain that the body can go harder and faster without overdoing it. But it also improves the buffering capacity. We deliberately subject the body to lower oxygen, higher carbon dioxide, to cause the body to make adaptations, to be able to withstand the drop to oxygen and the increase to carbon dioxide. Because these factors, our ability to tolerate these changes to blood gases during physical exercise, will have quite a significant influence on our performance. So breath holding is one aspect that we can change these gases to condition the body to be able to tolerate them. Now, in summary, what does the oxygen advantage involve? Number one, reduce breathlessness during physical exercise. We increase oxygen carrying capacity and delivery, improve VO2 max, improve running economy. Most of my work originally was preventing and reducing exercise-induced asthma. We also show you how to breathe to get improved coronary blood flow. In other words, improved oxygenation of the heart, to reduce lactic acid and fatigue, and to improve overall health and sports performance. So my name is Patrick McKeown. This is the Oxygen Advantage. Further information is available from oxygenadvantage.com, and also you can talk with Dr. Mike Milligan as regards getting further information in Illinois. So thank you very much.